Diego Simeone. His Atletico Madrid became masters of the dark arts, and UEFA was getting fed up. Simeone didn't just coach football, he weaponized every rule in the book. Tactical fouling, dramatic time wasting, players collapsing like they'd been shot by snipers. His Atletico Madrid could turn a 90-minute match into a 60-minute football game and a 30-minute theatre performance. One of the most notorious examples came in March 2022, when Atletico visited Old Trafford to face Manchester United in the Champions League round of 16. What unfolded was a masterpiece of anti-football so extreme it redefined what was possible. In the final 30 minutes of that match, the ball was in play for just 11 minutes and 19 seconds, a staggering 38% efficiency rate. To put this in perspective, Champions League matches typically see around 60% of the time with the ball actually in play, while most professional matches average between 52–57 minutes of effective playing time out of 90. Atletico had turned the beautiful game into a barely recognizable crawl. It wasn't just the illegal time wasting, though the succession of little fouls and feigned injuries was poetry in motion. It was their collective defensive masterwork, the relentless pressing, tactical fouling just below booking thresholds, and their ability to turn every dead ball situation into a strategic reset. Every restart became a psychological weapon, breaking United's rhythm before they could even begin to build attacking momentum. This was legal psychological warfare, executed at the highest level, but it worked beautifully. Atletico neutralized teams with budgets 3 times their size by turning football into a chess match played in slow motion. Technical superiority meant nothing when you couldn't get the ball for more than 5 seconds at a time, and when every passage of play was interrupted by Simeone's perfectly choreographed chaos. So FIFA fought back. Starting in 2022, they cranked up stoppage time like they were trying to make up for lost decades. Games that used to add 3 minutes were suddenly adding 8, 9, even 10 minutes. Referees got new guidelines to clamp down on time wasting, and VAR started monitoring off-the-ball incidents more closely. But Simeone's influence may go deeper. His mastery of time wasting helped expose football's vulnerability to game manipulation, contributing to broader discussions about effective playing time, essentially stopping time when the ball isn't in play. It's the nuclear option for time wasting, and it has been seriously considered as a solution to the time wasting issue, partly because managers like Simeone proved that game manipulation was becoming an art form. His legacy isn't just in the trophies he's won, but in helping force football to confront its own loopholes. That Old Trafford masterclass wasn't just terrible football, it was brilliant anti-football. Simeone weaponized the grey areas of the game so effectively that FIFA had to fundamentally rethink how time is managed in football. It's the ultimate example of how tactical innovation, even when it borders on bad sportsmanship, can force an entire sport to evolve its rules. Jurgen Klopp. The German's gegenpressing turned football into a sprint disguised as a marathon. Klopp didn't just press high, he created a system where losing the ball triggered immediate warfare. Players had 6 seconds to win it back or face the consequences of relentless pressure. Liverpool's 2019 season was the perfect example. They pressed like their lives depended on it, covering more ground than any team in Premier League history. Opponents couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't play, but the physical toll was brutal, and the injury list grew longer every month. The intensity was unprecedented. Traditional football allowed teams to slow down, control tempo, take a breather. Klopp's system said no, you press or you die. Games became 90-minute sprints where technical ability mattered less than cardiovascular endurance. Football authorities took notice, but not for rules, for player welfare. The relentless pressing highlighted fixture congestion issues and sparked debates about concussion protocols. When players are running themselves into the ground every 3 days, something has to give. The response was systematic. The Premier League introduced the 5 substitute rule, partly because of the physical demands teams like Klopp's Liverpool were placing on players. But Klopp's influence extended beyond tactics to touchline behaviour. His 2022 red card against Manchester City for aggressively confronting the assistant referee about a foul on Mohamed Salah became a watershed moment. Klopp's passionate outburst, which he later admitted was completely out of line, saying the red card was absolutely the right decision, sparked serious conversations about managerial conduct and the abuse of officials. The incident highlighted how the emotional intensity Klopp brought to every aspect of the game could cross the line from passion into aggression. His confrontation with the linesman was so heated it couldn't be ignored. The response was swift and decisive. The Premier League and FA introduced harsher punishments for touchline dissent in the 2023-24 season, with specific emphasis on technical area behaviour by managers and staff. Klopp's red card became the poster moment for why stricter boundaries were needed. Klopp didn't just change tactics, he proved that modern football's intensity had reached unsustainable levels, both on the pitch and on the touchline. His passionate sideline antics forced them to define where passion ends and misconduct begins. José Mourinho, the special one, who turned defensive football into psychological warfare. Mourinho didn't just park the bus, he built a fortress and dared you to break it down. His Porto, Chelsea and Inter teams could make 70% possession feel completely meaningless because you'd never get a clear shot. The 2010 Champions League semi-final at Camp Nou was vintage Mourinho. Inter went down to 10 men. Barcelona had 79% possession, and somehow Inter won 3-1 on aggregate. Mourinho's players were dropping like flies every time Barcelona got momentum. Substitutions took forever, and the referee added just 4 minutes of stoppage time. Barcelona fans were screaming robbery through every hole of their body. But Mourinho's provocations went beyond tactical gamesmanship. The most infamous moment came in August 2011, during the Spanish Super Cup. Mourinho jabbed his finger into the eye of Barcelona assistant coach Tito Vilanova during a mass brawl. The images went viral worldwide, sparking debates about touchline conduct and manager behaviour. UEFA hit him with a 5-match ban, and the incident became a catalyst for stricter codes of conduct regarding technical area behaviour and confrontations between coaching staff. But here's the genius. Mourinho exposed that football's timing rules were broken. His teams mastered every legal way to slow the game down. Goalkeepers took 20 seconds for every goal kick, throw-ins became tactical conferences, and injured players needed medical attention for paper cuts. FIFA finally cracked down. They increased stoppage time allowances specifically for time-wasting tactics. The 2022 World Cup became the laboratory. Games routinely had 8 to 12 minutes of added time because referees were told to actually account for all the delays. Mourinho's bus parking and cynical tactics didn't just win trophies, it forced football to admit that 90 minutes often contained only 60 minutes of actual football. Pep Guardiola, his Barcelona team, didn't just dominate possession, they hoarded it like dragons hoarding gold. Guardiola's tiki-taka could make 80% possession look casual. Opponents would chase shadows for 90 minutes, touch the ball maybe 200 times, and leave the pitch feeling like they'd been playing a different sport. The 2011 Champions League final against Manchester United was peak Pep. Barcelona completed over 700 passes, United managed about 300, and the scoreline was 3-1. United's players looked like they were chasing ghosts. It wasn't just winning, it was systematic humiliation through technical superiority. But opponents adapted in the ugliest way possible. If you can't get the ball, stop the game. Teams started fouling Barcelona players every time they touched it. Tactical fouling became epidemic because it was the only way to break tiki-taka's rhythm. The beautiful game was becoming a series of strategic interruptions. Guardiola's system was so pure that it exposed how crude football could become when desperation set in. FIFA responded with enhanced protection for creative players through VAR. But more importantly, the International Football Association Board started discussing persistent fouling as a team strategy. The idea that different players could commit tactical fouls without individual punishment became a recognized problem. Today's yellow card tactic of persistent fouling is often used by teams that use Mourinho or Simeone-style disruption against Guardiola-style possession. Pep's beautiful football forced authorities to protect beauty itself, proving that sometimes perfection is so threatening it needs rules to survive. Helenio Herrera. His Inter Milan turned defending into an art form so effective it nearly killed football as entertainment. Herrera didn't just organize a defense, he built a wall with a sweeper behind it and dared teams to score. His perfected Catenaccio system made 1-0 victories look like masterpieces of tactical discipline. The 1960s Inter were virtually unbeatable at home because they'd mastered the art of scoring once and shutting down completely. Using a 5-3-2 formation with 4 man-marking defenders and Armando Pichi sweeping behind them, games became chess matches where excitement went to die. Fans paid to watch 11 men defend a single goal like their lives depended on it. But it worked too well. Football was becoming unwatchable. Matches ended 0-0 or 1-0, with defenders making more touches than attackers. The beautiful game was turning into the boring game, and critics were calling it dull, overly defensive, and even destructive. When Celtic beat Inter 2-1 in the 1967 European Cup final with attacking football, many hailed it as a victory for football against the defensive stranglehold of Catenaccio. Football authorities were increasingly concerned about the rise of defensive tactics across the sport. While not directly responding to Herrera alone, FIFA and UEFA began implementing changes that would encourage more attacking play. The away goals rule, introduced in the 1965-66 Cup Winners' Cup, was designed to incentivize teams to attack away from home rather than simply defend for draws. No longer would teams be content to park the bus in both legs of European ties. The rule's first application came in November 1965, when Budapest Honvéd beat Dukla Prague 4-4 on aggregate by scoring more away goals. It was a direct response to the growing trend of defensive, result-oriented football that prioritized not losing over winning. UEFA wanted to eliminate the need for neutral venue playoffs while encouraging the kind of attacking play that was being suffocated by ultra-defensive systems. Herrera's legacy isn't just tactical, it's part of a broader story about football's evolution. His Catenaccio represented the peak of defensive thinking that helped prompt rule changes favoring attackers. Every subsequent adjustment to encourage attacking play, from offside interpretations to modern stoppage time enforcement, can be traced to football's ongoing battle to ensure the beautiful game doesn't become the boring game. He proved that winning was more important than beauty, and football authorities spent decades making sure that balance never tipped too far toward pragmatism again.
Rafael Benitez. His Liverpool squad rotation system drove the English press insane and forced football to rethink how squads work. Benitez didn't just rotate players, he treated his entire squad like a chess set, where every piece had a specific purpose for specific opponents. But he wasn't reckless with his best players. Steven Gerrard remained central to everything, though he never knew if he'd be playing central midfield, right midfield, or behind the striker. Benitez would shift his captain around tactically, converting him into a right winger during the 2005-06 season, despite Gerrard's displeasure. The manager justified it simply. Steve scored 23 goals last season, playing on the right side of midfield. Benitez's rotation was strategic, not chaotic. He kept Gerrard and Jamie Carragher as his untouchables, but disposed of nearly everyone else from his Champions League winning squad within 4 seasons. Even penalty shootout hero Jerzy Dudek was made backup goalkeeper the very season after their European triumph. The English press hammered him for it. Heavy criticism followed Benitez everywhere, but he persisted because the results spoke for themselves. A Champions League and FA Cup in his first 2 seasons. His approach at Valencia had been the same, sometimes resting his best players, confident his system would deliver results. What seemed mad then has become standard now. Benitez argued he needed to rotate his small squad to ensure key players were fit for the latter stages of knockout competitions. The science backed him up. Players who play the most minutes face bigger injury risks, especially when games come thick and fast. His 2005 Champions League victory came not through constant shuffling, but through tactical flexibility and keeping his best players fresh when it mattered most. The system wasn't about making players uncertain of their roles. It was about making sure they could perform them at full intensity when called upon. Benitez proved that modern football demanded more than just 11 good players. You needed a squad that understood their roles, accepted rotation, and trusted the system. Every manager who now talks about squad depth and managing player minutes is following the blueprint Benitez pioneered at Liverpool.
Antonio Conte. His Chelsea team brought back the three-at-the-back formation and made it look revolutionary again. Conte didn't invent the system, but he perfected it for modern football. His 3-4-3 formation dominated the Premier League and forced every opponent to adapt. The 2016-17 Chelsea team was unstoppable with Conte's system. Wing-backs provided width, three centre-backs gave defensive stability, and the front three had freedom to create chaos. Teams that tried to play traditional 4-4-2 against Conte's Chelsea got systematically dismantled. But it wasn't just the formation, it was how Conte made it work. His wing-backs covered more ground than any full-backs in Premier League history. His centre-backs switched between man-marking and zonal systems mid-game. It was tactical flexibility disguised as a simple formation change. The impact was immediate and league-wide. Every Premier League manager had to prepare for three-at-the-back systems. Training sessions changed, tactical boards got more complex, and the traditional 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1 and 4-3-3 formations that had dominated English football for decades suddenly looked outdated. Conte didn't force a rule change, but he forced a tactical evolution. Today's Premier League is full of managers using three-at-the-back variations, and it all traces back to Conte, proving that old ideas could become new again with the right execution. His legacy isn't in breaking rules, it's in breaking the assumption that tactical innovation requires completely new ideas. Sometimes, revolution means perfecting what everyone else forgot.
Tony Pulis, the manager who made opposing teams fear the sideline and throw-ins more than the penalty box. Stoke City turned set pieces into biological warfare. Pulis didn't just use throw-ins and corners, he weaponized them. His teams could win matches purely through aerial bombardment and physical intimidation in the penalty box. Stoke's Britannia Stadium became a nightmare for technical teams. Rory Delap's throw-ins travelled 40 yards at 60 km/h and caused chaos in penalty boxes across England. The psychological impact was immediate. Visiting players would visibly drain of colour before matches even started. Arsenal found themselves victims, losing 2-1 at the Britannia in 2008, with both Stoke goals coming directly from Delap's throws. Arsene Wenger was so frustrated, he called Delap's throws a little bit of an unfair advantage. Wenger actually tried changing throw-in laws and preventing Delap from using towels to dry the ball. Anything to stop the chaos. The system exposed how unprepared most teams were for old-fashioned physical football. Technical players couldn't handle the constant pressure, and matches became dominated by set-piece situations. Teams even resorted to desperate measures. West Ham moved advertising boards closer to prevent Delap's run-up, while others preferred giving away corners rather than face his throws. The famous Andy Gray quote captured it perfectly. When discussing Messi and Ronaldo in 2010, Gray questioned whether the Barcelona star could handle a cold winter night against Stoke's physical style. The phrase, "Can they do it on a cold rainy night in Stoke?" became football's ultimate test of grit versus skill. Pulis's influence on modern football was cultural. He proved that football's grey areas could be exploited through pure physicality and psychological warfare. His legacy lives not in rule changes, but in every team that realised set pieces could be weapons of mass destruction. Tony Pulis didn't break the rules, he bent them until everyone else had to adapt.
When managers become so innovative they break the game has no choice but to evolve. Every rule change, every tactical revolution, every piece of technology, they all trace back to coaches who were simply too smart for the system to handle. These managers didn't just win matches and trophies, they forced football to confront its own limitations and evolve beyond them. The beautiful game stays beautiful because it adapts, and these tactical masterminds are the reason why. If you enjoyed this deep dive into tactical history, make sure to subscribe, because we're just getting started with breaking down the masterminds behind the game.